is when I had my own contact get started. One of the things you have to realize is that when you read material that is really well written from higher realms, a process occurs called tuning. So lots of people have been asking me, how could I, meaning the writer, whoever's writing the email, how could I learn to be more psychic? How could I be more intuitive? How could I get more in touch with my higher self? The key is to give yourself really, really clean, high vibration material, to get that material into your mind and get it into your heart by reading it. And reading that material up-levels your vibration. It up-levels your soul's energy. And what is that vibration? What does that soul energy mean? Well, one of the things this material and many others like it tell us is that your true energy as a person is not in the physical body. It's this energy field. It's this soul. And there is an actual vibrational speed to the energy that makes up your soul. And of course, the faster something vibrates, the faster information moves around inside, which means your mind will work faster, and of course, information can be processed faster. And in this case, it also refers to, on the most esoteric level, how closely aligned you are with your original identity, which according to this Law of One series is the one infinite creator. This intelligent life force that has created the entire universe, so that every particle, every area, even in the darkest depths of empty space, is actually full with the life and the vitality and the mind of this one infinite creator. When you start looking at it this way, it makes the idea of an exclusive religion obsolete, because why would you want to be trying to divide and conquer when everyone is coming from the same source and everyone is part of this infinite creation? Of course, there are many, many worlds that people live on. This is far from the only planet that has intelligent life on it. Intelligent life is a signature of the galaxy. The Law of One tells us that the galaxy itself is a super being, that it has a personality, and it designed a series of 22 archetypal experiences that we go through, that every person on every planet in the entire galaxy is going to experience in more or less similar ways. There's an underlying theme that you will be guided to go through. This is explaining all the things with Carl Jung's research where people in various cultures have these archetypal dreams, and the same type of themes show up in dreams of people who never knew this thing consciously. So it's as if we all have one mind. We're not really so separate. Our mind energy is shared with one another on a level much greater than we would ever normally conceive of. All these concepts are coming into my mind in November 1996. By that point, I had really consolidated my study of the Law of One. I'd gotten through all 4 books, and I was really learning a lot more. I had Mandelker tell me at this conference that I could really be someone in this field. And it all sort of came home to roost as I started to listen in the morning to this background noise that had always been there in my mind when I first woke up, or as I was drifting off to sleep. It kind of is like a frothing sea of imagination. It doesn't really require any effort. And this is one of the keys to learning to train yourself intuitively. Another person whose work I'd studied was Dr. Courtney Brown, who at the time was popular on the Art Bell Show, and he had a book out called Cosmic Voyage. And he'd worked with people who taught him how to do remote viewing and had gotten involved in some very highly esoteric extraterrestrial subjects in the course of his remote viewing. In his original book, Cosmic Voyage, there's a great deal of complementarity between what he says and what was in the Law of One material. And I caught on to this very early in the process and realized that they probably are drawing off of a common storehouse of truth and wisdom. So Dr. Courtney Brown was, of course, one of the people who spoke at the same conference with Dr. Scott Mandelker. And in fact, Mandelker came on directly after Dr. Brown's talk was over. And almost the entire audience just fled the room to go chase after Dr. Brown. He had an enormous number of books that he'd brought with him to the conference, and they sold entirely. There was nothing left. So I stayed and I listened to Dr. Mandelker talk because his book had had such an impact on me and was such a turning point in my life. I just couldn't possibly go chase after Dr. Brown. But I would say the vast majority of the audience was gone. There was only maybe a third or even 25% of them left. And I was kind of expecting Dr. Mandelker to give this really amazing cosmic talk and get into various types of extraterrestrials and where they came from and what were their cultures about and all these kinds of things. And instead, he gave this very Zen-like talk about your identity and who really are you and what is it that you really want in life and what do you feel you're here for? What is the greater meaning that your life has? It was very cool because he was talking about the Law of One material and actually ended up calling me up on stage because I was sitting in the front row and I had a copy of the book in my hand. So right from the very beginning, the very first UFO conference I ever went to, I was called up on stage and I demonstrated this book to the audience. And of course, Mandelker ended up hiring me a few years later as his science director on this Time of Global Shift seminar tour that we did. But that's getting ahead of the story. So, again, after Dr. Brown had basically gotten worked over by the whole audience, I was psychically guided to actually go look for him. And this is after Mandelker had finished his talk. Sure enough, he was fleeing the hotel for obvious reasons. Everybody was chasing him down. So he was taking a taxi back to the airport within hours after he'd finished talking. And I found him out on the curb, totally alone, sitting on his suitcase waiting for the taxi. And I was able to have a conversation with him, and it was really important for me because here I had seen someone whose intuitive data had obviously paralleled what was in the Law of One material. And more importantly, his book gave all the basics of the protocol for remote viewing. There's basic things that you have to do in order to ensure that your information comes through as clearly and as cleanly as possible. And it's not that complicated. One of the things is to avoid analyzing your data. That's probably the most important one. You just have to let it come through. You don't have any role whatsoever in trying to decide whether any of the content makes any sense, whether the sentences, if you get words, even will make any sense when you listen to them. You don't want to focus on any content. You don't want to have any interest in what you're saying. Just totally let go of it. Another key is no emotional impressions. You don't want to have any kind of emotional reaction to what you're saying. You really just want to get away from it and not pay much attention to it. Another key, of course, is not to have your body being distracted. You want to make sure that you've been to the bathroom. You want to make sure you're not hungry, you're not thirsty, that all your physiological needs are taken care of. And another key, of course, is to immediately let everything come through. Don't spend any time hesitating. Give yourself a constant stream of data. Whatever it is that's coming in your mind right in that moment, use it. Write it down, get it on paper, make it happen. So naturally, you're also inducing a state called mind awake, body asleep, in which your mind is very active, but your entire body feels almost like you're about to fall asleep. In fact, it can be very difficult to maintain this state of mind because it's something where your whole body is telling you, oh, come on, you can't be serious. You want to stay awake? Come on, give me a break. Let's go to sleep here. And you just have to grind through it and keep going. So I saw pretty easily that I could modify the protocols of remote viewing, which were predominantly dealing with writing things down on paper and getting a physical view of some remote location, and use those same protocols to get words instead and sentences. So sure enough, it was after meeting Dr. Brown and seeing he was a very ordinary guy who just happened to be using this skill that he had been trained to use, that most of us don't use, that I started to end up doing my own work. Mandelker's vote of confidence had been very positive for me. Dr. Brown's vote of confidence also, he also said some positive things about me and where I was coming from in the short time that we were able to talk before the taxi picked him up. Of course, Dr. Brown's career basically fell apart after the fiasco involving the comet Hale-Bopp, where this group of people in a cult decided to kill themselves with a very elaborate and strange ritual process, hoping that they would get on board this extraterrestrial spacecraft that Dr. Brown had said on the Art Bell show was following the comet, which was being called the Hale-Bopp Companion. And it essentially did destroy Dr. Brown's career. He basically stopped writing books after that and kind of got out of the whole thing. It's a shame because he wasn't the only one